Hey guys, my name is Matt. I'm down here at High Life Auto in Fort Madison, Iowa, and we got the 2020 Chrysler Pacifica in our shop today, but I want to just kind of show you the basics of how an engine works, some of the terminology, stuff like that, just so you have a better understanding of how things function. The purpose of this video and all of our videos that I'm doing here are just to kind of show you how cars function, how they work, and also how that affects the value when you're going to buy your next vehicle and what to look for and how to adjust prices on stuff. So anyway, this is my wife's van. I'm going to go say 2020 Chrysler Pacifica. We noticed as we were driving it, when we put it under certain loads, that it would start to rattle. It made a noise that I was familiar with, and it was just going up hills or when we go to pass people, it would just make that rattling type noise. And it was the timing chain. The timing chain was getting stretched, and so it was not completely gone yet, but it was just stretched enough that it was causing issues. And what happens is if this vehicle, the timing chain snaps, this is what's called a zero tolerance engine, which means you would have to replace the entire engine if that happens. And I'm just going to explain to you why. These things laying here on the ground, this here and that here, are your engine heads. Your engine heads, let me turn on my little headlights here. Your engine heads, they sit right on top of this engine right here. You see those round things right there? Those are your pistons. As your engine is running, this is going to be like where your belt drive is. As your engine is running, your pistons go up and down. And when they go up, it's pushing all the exhaust out. When they're all the way in the down position, your injectors are shooting fuel in, and it's pulling air in through your intake. And then there is, so you have gas and air in that chamber. And as it's coming up, there's that explosion from your spark plug, which obviously fuel, air, and spark mixed together causes an explosion. And so as this is coming up, this is right about where, you know, your fuel and your air is all in here, and it's getting compressed because it's coming up. It's meeting the resistance because there's a head sitting right on top. And when it gets to the top, that spark shoots right there. And obviously whenever there's spark with fuel and air, it's going to create an explosion. That explosion pushes down on that piston, which is what makes it go down. All these pistons moving together create a well-balanced motor so that you can obviously drive around. And that's how your car is powered. What sits on top of your engine right here is your heads. This is right here. And this is what I'm going to explain to you about the zero tolerance. Part of your timing is your camshaft. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we probably talk about some 5.7 Hemis, because those have it all the time. But you have these little things here that are in the head called push rods. Your camshafts sit right in this little valley right here. And they just turn. They have a bunch of little lobes to them, so they turn at different times. So it might like open this one, close this one, open this one, close this one, just based on how the vehicle is supposed to run. What happens is as this is turning over, these little things get pushed down. They come up, they get pushed down. These are your valve springs. They get pushed down, they let up. And what you see on the back side of the head is you see these little plungers right here. What happens is as your camshaft is turning over, these will open and close. You have two different ones. You have your exhaust valves, which when these open, what's going to happen is it's going to let the exhaust from that explosion go out through your exhaust, go to your tailpipe. When these ones open, it is letting the air in from your intake. So obviously you have to have fuel and air. And I even could be wrong here. That might be your fuel. One might be fuel, one might be air. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you everything, but they open and close based on air, gas, fuel, that type of thing. Right, that little hole right there in the middle is your spark plug. The reason I bring all this up is as these plungers open, they release the gas, or they release the exhaust, or they let the air in. Well, this motor is turning over, and you can see just how close that gets to the surface right there. If that little plunger on the head pushes down and is open while this is coming up, that's what they refer to as a bent valve or a broken valve. And it actually literally will destroy either your piston or your head. Most likely your piston will have the most of the damage or damage the block, but it's going to cause significant damage that you're going to have to replace that engine. What causes that is when your vehicle gets so far out of time or your timing chain breaks, those camshafts don't know when to turn right. When they don't know when to turn right, sometimes they're opening and closing those valves, those plungers, at the wrong time. And so this one is starting to chatter, which gave us that warning. We were able to fix it before there was any problems. But if you start to hear those chattering noises or you start to hear unknown noises, you want to get it checked out because really it's the difference between me having to replace this entire engine and then me just doing a gasket set. You might say like, why does that even matter to me? Well, I can do this gasket set myself. It's a fairly easy job and it's not too complicated. I would definitely say it's on the scale from 1 to 10, 10 being expert, 1 being a beginner. I would give it probably more of that 6 to 7 range, but this particular vehicle, not too bad to do it on. But all the gaskets, everything included, I would say were under $400. If I would have had to replace this engine, the engine alone would have probably cost me around $2,000, $3,000. So when it comes to value of vehicles, when you have vehicles with timing issues, you can buy them dirt cheap because one, you don't really know, do I have to redo the entire engine and replace it because the valves are bad and it damaged the engine, or do I just have to do the timing job because it was lack of maintenance? A lot of times cars won't start, so you can't really tell. You can do compression tests to find stuff out like that, but you can buy vehicles dirt cheap. We get vehicles well under $1,000, especially your stuff that's 10 years old and that kind of range that need timing jobs because people don't like to do this because it's overly complicated. Your 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder stuff, obviously are going to be a lot easier, smaller tools, easier to do, more space typically. When you get into some of your bigger vehicles, even your 6-cylinders, 8-cylinders, you just want to look under there. One of the first things I do when I buy cars is I open the compartment. Is there actual room to work? Does it look simple? Do I understand where things are? And that definitely helps you out. I would not take this job on if it was like an Audi or a BMW or a Mercedes. Mercedes I've heard are not terrible, but some of those foreign cars, it's like you just don't understand how they work because they're completely different concepts. So anyway, bite that one off with a piece of caution just because you could get yourself into some trouble with timing. You might have it checked out at a shop. There are different tests that you can do to tell if your timing's bad. But typically it's a noise thing, a power thing, something you hear, and that's how the engine works as well. I just kind of wanted to show you the basic functions. I tell my kids all the time, for an engine to run, you need fuel, air, and spark. And when I go to diagnose an engine, I am usually looking at those 3 things as I'm wanting to know, is it getting air? Is it getting fuel? And is it getting spark? And typically I can diagnose most vehicles just with that thinking in mind and going through the processes. Is the spark plug firing, or the coil sending the spark? Is it getting a good connection from the coil? Is the fuel coming from is the fuel pump sending the fuel up to the fuel rail? Is the fuel rail sending it into the injector? Are the injectors opening and sending fuel in? And so you have a bunch of things you can walk through and progress, but it all starts with understanding how the engine functions. So I just wanted to show you that while we had this torn apart. Anyway, guys, my name is Matt. I'm at High Life Auto in Fort Madison, Iowa. Feel free to drop any comments, ask any questions. We're just showing you how vehicles work, the basic functions, repairs, different things like that, and how they affect the value when you go to buy cars or are looking at buying a car. This is our 2020 Chrysler Pacifica, and hopefully when I'm done, we're going to have a good running Pacifica that should be ready for the long haul. Thanks, guys.